Hola, hola, everybody. Welcome back to another amazing season of High on Feminism. We are celebrating season 5 this year, and we have such an amazing lineup of women entrepreneurs and founders to share with you all. As some of you may or may not know, I have left the shithole we call the US of A and have moved all the way to Barcelona, Spain. So this season is all about women in España who are doing the thing, creating companies and communities that are truly amazing. To kick off this season, I have joined a lovely women's co-working space called Juno House, and I have one of the co-founders here with us today. Liana Grieg is all the way here from Maine, and she's ready to chat with us. Hi, Liana.
So
Welcome.
nice to be here. Thanks a lot.
Of
It's great to
course.
have you here too.
I'm excited to be here. It has been a journey to be here. So it has been really great to have Juno and have the community and opportunities. And, as I get more adjusted to my new Spain life, be integrated more into the community. So it's really great.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's fun to be new in a city. It's fun
Yeah.
to have stars in your eyes.
Yes.
Every now and then, I still like to go for these big, mysterious walks around the city, which I call moments where I fell in love again
Oh,
with the city itself. And there's always a series of things that just spontaneously happen when you go and you go, that is why I live here.
yes.
But yeah, I hope you really enjoy these first months because there's a lot of magic.
Yeah, I'm already feeling it, and I've only been here for 3 months, so I'm sure the longer I'm here, the better. And it's funny that you said like those like walks to kind of fall in love again. Like that's what I used to do in New York all the time, and like not even intentionally sometimes, but I would like walk around certain areas and just like re-fall in love with the city. And I felt like once I wasn't like re-falling in love during those walks anymore, that's when I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
It's time to leave.
Yeah, New York also has magical effect on me and I love those moments. If you can permit yourself just some aimless hours,
Yeah.
then that's what those special moments unfold and you meet people or you do it alone or yeah. I'm a big fan, as you can tell, of
Yeah.
walkable cities.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you haven't noticed.
Barcelona is definitely walkable.
Mhm.
So we're here live at the Juno House recording studio.
Yes.
Tell me how exactly you and Natalie started Juno House.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So we actually met over 10 years ago here in Barcelona.
Okay.
And shortly after that, I moved to New York City. I was looking for, my big professional dreams, and I knew that I had to go back to the US.
Mhm.
And so for me, it had to be New York. There
Yeah.
was no other substitute for that. Not long after I moved there, then Natalie also landed in the city, and we were constantly having these, post-workout coffee catch-ups that turned into margaritas, where it would be like,
Love it.
how could it possibly be that these two beautiful lives can't overlap a little bit more?
Mhm.
How can we have this amazing hustle of the New York City girl and the beautiful work-life balance of Barcelona? So it was always clear that you couldn't really superimpose Barcelona on New York.
Mhm.
But then the whispers of what if a little bit of New York translated itself over into Barcelona, right?
Yeah.
So these were ideas that we had, and we used to also work together on really simple things, even like women's networking dinners in New York City, bringing people together. So it became clear that we had similar interests and totally different skill sets,
Okay.
which is a great recipe for a partnership when it comes to building a business together.
Definitely.
So fast forward, I stayed in New York. Natalie came back and started working in the startup world. And eventually I decided to leave my career in finance and go back to school. So I moved back to Barcelona, and that's where we reconnected again, and the whispers turned into conversations. I finished my master's degree. I came back for a conference, and after one night of scheming and dreaming, I'll never forget, I was sitting in the international terminal at Barcelona going back to the States because I had a job I needed to go back to. And we were working on the phone on the first pitch deck of what Juno House would actually look like. So that was, let's see, about 6 months before we decided to really get our hands dirty.
Yeah.
I came to Barcelona for what was supposedly going to be 1 month in a famous date known as January 2020. And so just as my flight back to the States was supposed to take off was when the lockdown started.
Yeah.
But for us, this became the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Instead of leaving, I just stayed and stayed and stayed. And I spent all of quarantine with my hands in Excel, absolutely loving this part of building a business.
Yeah.
It's where I felt where I was really strong, and I started to take control of the numbers and just own that whole business side of things, which was part of my strength, which is part of the background that I brought. And we started dreaming and putting things on paper. We started pitching on Zoom while there were still the quarantine conditions in place.
Yeah.
And we got really lucky. Honestly,
Yeah.
we started fundraising as soon as we could. We were super fortunate to meet some local investors who really loved our idea, and just a lot of women who were interested in community at that point, and we'd all been locked up.
Yeah. Literally.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So after that, the idea was just that we were working on giving tours of the space when everyone had a hard hat on, and it was dust and rubble.
Okay.
Honestly, we just had renders on an iPad and said, do you want to join our mission?
Yeah. Like, imagine this.
Yeah. Close your eyes, then open them, look at the render, and then close it again.
Yeah.
And we are so lucky that there's such a big community of women here in this city that also support what we want to do, which was really to build a space where the woman is the protagonist.
Yeah.
You know, we felt like that needed to happen here. And it was meant to be very 360, both business, wellness, self-definition, and really growing on all aspects of your life. So before we even opened the doors, we had over 300 members signed up.
Amazing.
And then they flung open.
And more people kept coming.
Exactly. In 2022. And here we are on the cusp of our third anniversary.
Yes, I know. It's so crazy. I did buy my ticket. Obviously, this episode's coming out after Juno Blossom, so I'm just going to predict that I have a really great time.
I'm willing to second that notion.
Yeah. But I think that's so beautiful. You know, having a co-founder and having people to kind of bounce off ideas is always what I've been seeing over the years is like I wish I had a co-founder.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful for it. There's another special woman to mention who joined us right before we went into lockdown, who's Eva Vila. She is local. She's from here. She's lived in a lot of other different countries. And so having this dynamic of three different brains who are very different people, who have interests that are quite varied as well, it helped us to ensure that we were covering our bases and really designing a club that's meant for a lot of different type of women.
Yeah. And that's what I see here too, because obviously the way that we met was through yoga. And, you know, I credit you for my new body because people are always surprised. They're like, you never walked in New York? And I was like, no, New York is disgusting. Like, I don't want to walk around New York. I don't want to pay, you know, an arm and a leg for some gym membership. And, you know, I was doing yoga to the people very long time ago. Yeah.
Standing in line on that staircase.
Yes. Yes. You know, having the waft of all the sweaty, hot air hit you as they leave class. Oh, it's the best feeling. But, you know, before they had their controversy, you know, I was a part of that. And I kind of stumbled into it with some of my coworkers at the restaurant I was working at, you know, New York City life. And I at first was so terrified because I mean, as you've seen, I have zero arm strength. I have no upper body strength. No, I really don't. I do a little bit now since starting yoga again, but I really have absolutely none. No. So that was the hardest part was getting into it. So when I came back and that was apart from it's so aesthetically pleasing here and it's so calming and it's just beautiful space and everything. And then there's the opportunity for wellness classes. I'm like, okay, yes, this is what I need. And I started and I was so nervous because I'm like, oh my God, I know that my arms are like noodles right now. I can't hold myself up, but I have to do this. And it's true because there's so many different women. I'm an observer. So when I first came in here, I was you know, my husband came in for a tour and he's like, oh my God, babe, this is the perfect place for you. I'm sure there's women that could use. And I was like, I know that, but I need to figure out how to enter into everything without being overpowering. So I've been very observant and I watch everyone and everything. And there's so many I love the fashion, but then there's also you know, the fitness girlies that throw on a blazer after the yoga class. And so it's just so nice and comforting, you know, and I feel I always thought I was an extrovert until I moved here.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like I can speak Spanish, but I get very nervous because I don't use it all the time, especially not surprisingly in New York.
Mm.
So I don't know if it's that or just like, you've built this whole identity for yourself in another city. And now you're like, does that version of me like fit in this city or are there things I
Do I
have to
still relate
be?
to that?
Yeah. So I kind of have to like mosey around some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were thinking about, the overall like programming and ideas for the place and thinking about catering, like what are some of those, obviously I know them, but like what are some of those different areas that you feel like kind of touch on all
Yeah.
the different members?
Yeah. Well, we always knew that something, when I talked earlier about what we wanted to bring to this city, New York City for me is a professional trampoline.
Hmm.
You can walk into your first job there thinking, man, I'm so lucky to have gotten this entry level position, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of years, and if you're hungry enough, you're going to own that place.
Yeah.
And I love that because that's the kind of work ethic that for me works really well.
Hmm.
I come from a competitive sports background. I know that if I'm interested in something, that I can get it.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think that we were sort of missing that here in Barcelona. And it's not because it didn't exist, but it was completely decentralized.
Yeah.
The ambitious women who want to be able to pursue motherhood and a career at the same time.
Yes.
Or the women who might have a corporate position, but also a side entrepreneurial gig. They are people who need support.
Yeah.
And there are also people who offer support, which women do quite naturally. I don't know if you've ever noticed how you could just step into an elevator by the time you get to the sixth floor, someone's insisting on giving them their number.
Yeah.
Like, let me help you. How can I help
Yeah.
you? And we just wanted to see if we could bring all that into one space.
Hmm.
And, like quick reveal, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. There's a
Proof of
lot of
concept.
there's a lot of interest. And so I love that you could attend something like a talk on improving your personal finances and then just pop upstairs to a makeup class. And then after that, maybe you're doing your 45 minutes of Tight and Tone and then having a business lunch downstairs. Something else that we borrowed from the US is definitely the concept of convenience, which is not terribly prioritized in Spain. And so we wanted to show people a little bit what it's like to maybe work your way from the top floor wellness studio all the way down to the cafe downstairs, making a few stops along the way and feeling like you're nourishing yourself professionally, personally. It's about a 360 approach. This is what I try to tell people when they're thinking about joining the club. I say, okay, you need to know a little bit about how you like to take care of yourself, and you need to be open to some of the suggestions that we might have for you too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what drew me to it. So I found out about you guys. So last year, top of January, my team and I, we always have sort of like beginning of the year meetings, like, here are my goals. What are your goals? And I was like, guys, I'm leaving. Like this time next year, like I'm out. And I was like, what does that mean? How do we shift over? So I sort of like one of the members, Casey, that I've become friends with, she's like, you just have it because like I took me a while to find this place, but you found it like from the jump.
Nice.
And I was like, that's because I'm a Capricorn and I'm a little bit anal and I I think it helps me become extroverted is like being fully prepared and knowing. And so I was like, I think we need to start reaching out to other PR professionals and seeing if we can connect with them. And then from there, we ended up meeting someone that was a member here. And I came in June last year and she was like, why don't you meet me at Juno? And I came in and I was like, oh my God, what is this place?
Oh,
like,
I'm so happy to hear it.
I was like, I have to be here. Like, I don't know what's happening, but I have to be here. And it was great. And I'm looking around and for us, like New Yorkers, it's like Ludlow House and Soho House. And I can't with those places.
It's a different purpose.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm really happy that they exist because this industry can be a little bit lonely, in fact, because it's not so common. I'll never forget our first year we opened, my co-founder and I, we went to London on a business trip. And it was so cool to chat with other people who are in the industry of either a social or a business club. Usually it tends towards more one or the other. And we're doing our best to create this hybrid.
Yeah.
And I love that. And sometimes it's really fun for the members too, because imagine maybe some of your closest friends who are in your life and in your circle, you never see them in their professional setting.
Yeah.
You only ever see them in that social world, which is fine. And maybe that's just the relationship you have with them. But you have this cool way of connecting here in Juno House where you might see somebody who is on in their very high-powered woman entrepreneurial
Yeah.
life, or they're here with a corporate client, and then they could just step aside and have a conversation with you about something a little bit more socially related. And I think that's so beautiful, because how could it be that you invest that many hours of your life in your profession and that you feel so unrelated to it that you don't even share that with the people around you?
Yeah.
Or sometimes some of your favorite friends, you think, man, their colleagues get to hang out with them all the time.
Yeah.
I only see them once per quarter.
Yeah.
No,
That is so true.
And so now that we have a more flexible work style as
Yeah.
well, post-COVID, a lot more people are able to enjoy this kind of an environment where it's hybrid. It's a word that we throw around a lot, but like, let's take a second to recognize what that means.
Yeah.
Not so many boundaries either between work and life, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
So it's about defining, which of those things you're able to cross over, where you need some definition, and kind of set yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, apart from the programming, I think too, there's like little things here and there that I think just give like the best touches, like the library, for instance. Like, I just love that idea. Like the fact that the women here that have books, and from what I've seen, like it feels like there's quite a few, they can have their book in there. And I've, been in the library before when women have come in and they've been like, oh, this is my book. And I know that this one is another friend. And so I see like the value of that. And I think too, it's like powerful, because for me, like I'm always in my PR mode where I'm like, how can this be good for this? So those are things that I look at where I'm like, this is beneficial for people, not just from a business level, but also from a promotional level. You have that opportunity to promote your books, your brands in the little, like, what do we call
the
that
Juno
area?
shop.
Yeah. So I was like, what do we call that area? The Juno shop.
Simple.
Yeah. Which makes sense. Yes. So it's great to have that ability. And then, yeah, like I remember when Marta was doing my onboarding and she's showing me all these clubs, and there's like a club for everything, and it felt like an elevated high school where I was like, oh, there's a club for everything. Yeah. And of course, like me, I'm like, I'll do the food and wine. That one sounds
such a good one.
That sounds like a good one.
That's a cool thing that surprised us too, because we initially, of course, had our idea about what the agenda would be like and how much of that we needed to lead ourselves. But as it turns out, 50% of the agenda that's being offered here at Juno House is actually made by members.
Yeah.
It can either be member-led concepts. Like I know you recently did a session here offering to explain to people a little bit about what the PR world is like coming from Brooklyn, because that's super interesting to women who work in PR here, because it's a different world.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I love that, because it has a very altruistic element to it, where this is people who form themselves into a community and say, let me see what I can offer, and how I can offer that in an intimate setting as well. And then the other side of it are these community groups.
Yeah.
The community groups are beautiful, because for us, it's somewhat laissez-faire. We said, okay, you show us what you want to learn.
Yeah.
And actually, it wasn't even that. It was more like the members started asking us if we can create interest groups. And we said, absolutely. Yes, please. And so, like you said, there's quite a range. You have everything from climate impact to the gastronomy and wine club. You have the ones who get together to talk about Instagram algorithms and help each other. You have another group where people are coming to show their projects in audio visual, something, a group that might not have that many people to relate to. And so they've built this here, and they can have interesting speakers. And so I love the community groups. I think it's something really beautiful. And at the end of the day, what we really wanted to do is create a space where women can share with each other and they can help lift each other up. Yeah. This is what it is at the end of the day. And so all of these different formats mean that you can interact with it maybe on a more individual level, maybe more communal level, maybe a little bit more like sit down and listen level. Yeah. And so all of this is your kind of buffet of development here.
Yeah, that really is it. It is quite the buffet. It really is. I mean, I went to very early on. One of the girls up front brought me, I was here late, being my American self.
Right.
They were like,
it's always the experts who are hanging out. Yeah, it's always us.
I closed down in March many times. Oh, yeah. But she dragged me to one of the like cosmetic brand like presentations. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like you have the opportunity to kind of be like in your own focus group, or have your own focus group for your brand. And, at first for me, like I really don't wear makeup. I don't really do a lot of like skincare products. So at first I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person to come to this. But then afterwards, there was like, I'm a we do branding and public relations. So when I look at brands, I'm looking at like absolutely everything. And so there was like little things here and there, even like some translations from like Spanish to English that I caught. And I was like, okay, actually, I guess it is good to have like different people that aren't just about skincare, because it's like, how can you help this person like reshape your brand, or, help them with especially like the translation sometimes between other languages. And I know just from hearing conversations, it's not just like Americans and Spaniards here. There's like women from all over. So it's like so great to have those opportunities, or even like pitch your brand and be like, hey, this is, what I'm thinking of for a brand. Does anyone have feedback on how I go about this? And that's what I wish like when I first started I had, because I was working from home before like COVID working from home was a thing. And I was mainly by myself. Liv has been with me for many years now. But, in between, it was like just me and maybe interns here and there. And I never really had like, hey, does this seem crazy? Like, should I offer this, or how should I do this? Like, I never really had that. And being an entrepreneur sometimes is like lonely, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
Especially a solopreneur.
yeah.
Man, that's rough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Now I have a great team that supports me, and they get to listen to me bitch and complain about, like, should I go back to corporate? But, to start, it's always like a little scary. And I think just like the organic relationships that have sort of started forming for me and some of the other women have been really great. And again, I think sometimes my New Yorker is in me, which is like that standoffishness slash like introverted person. So when people come up, I'm like, oh my God, what do you want? Yeah. I'm like, what do you want? And then I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, this is nice,
What parts of it do you think helped you shine the most initially when you jumped into entrepreneurship?
Um, that's a great question. I'm supposed to be interviewing you. Um, I think it was really just starting to work with brands that like I truly valued, because that's why I like got into it. I was working for all these companies that didn't really have a good like moral compass, and the brands they brought on reflected that. And, for me, it's hard to do my best work for clients that like I don't believe in what they're selling, kind of deal. So once I started being able to like bring in my own clients and choose who I worked with, that made me like super excited and kind of like gave me that momentum to be like, I got this. And then, of course, COVID happened, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? So it was a little scary at first, but I mean, COVID in and of itself, like the number of women owned businesses that popped up out of COVID is obviously from like, patriarchal standpoint, because all of a sudden women are not forced to be doing X, Y, and Z, and they have downtime to be able to actually, think of these ideas. Or some people out of necessity had to find alternate ways to be making income during that time. So the fact that you guys are also a product from COVID, like while it was obviously terrible, it is beneficial in a lot of ways, because the amount of companies that were built during that time is like insane.
Absolutely. I mean, it's yin and yang. You can't have one without the other, right? Yeah. And so I'm very grateful for many beautiful things that happened during that time. And again, we have to recognize that there were a lot of difficulties that came out of it. But at the same time, it gave us an opportunity to see the world with new eyes. And it gave us an opportunity also for three very busy women, which is myself and my two co-founders, to concentrate and combine energy needed to create something like Juno House. And I've seen many other beautiful projects that sort of emerged during that time. There's a couple of interesting businesses here in Barcelona. We all have a similar birthday, let's call it.
Okay.
Between Juno. And I love that, because there's some camaraderie as well about sort of coming up together at the same time.
Yeah. Something I think I really resonated with on the website, language wise. Again, I'm a brand person, so I'm always like, how are they positioning this? Was it was like something about like being not competition, but being more like community. And that's definitely something that, I feel like I need in my life. I started this podcast and this brand because I wasn't, the best girl's girl for a while. And at some point I recognized that and I was like, very much like, this is ridiculous, Jessica. I don't know why you're not. Like, get your shit together. And
maybe you didn't relate to it. There was
it was hard.
a rocky road for a minute there with it. I think, well, going back to your point, the value that we put forward, and I would say I could call our most important one is collaboration over competition. Always. Because there's no way you can have a community of over 600 women that there aren't people who do some of the same stuff.
Yes.
Right. But we need to maintain that concept that together the flame grows brighter.
Yeah.
Right. And that there is enough space for everybody. But I can understand. I think for a while there, it felt like there was only one way to be a feminist.
Yes.
And if you weren't all in, then you were off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it that way at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to spend time around so many different people living their life within that framework and saying, I'm a feminist, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
Or this is the way that I'm a mother, or this is the way I show up for my friends here, or this is my life as an expat. Some people are more integrated than others and all of this. And so you can start to amalgate everything and sort of figure out what feminism means to you. I think that's something you have to reflect on regularly.
Yeah.
You can't just necessarily plant your flag and say, this is my feminist perspective. No way. The world is evolving. And we are really lucky to live in a place where the feminist cause has been very advanced.
Yeah.
And Catalonia has always been a place. One example that I like to share sometimes is that in this particular region of Spain where we are in Catalonia, when you get married, all of the things that you share with your partner are not automatically shared. That is a box you check when you're filling out the paperwork. And that's supposed to be considered part of the feminist agenda, because there are enough women who have had a career here for long enough that they say, maybe I want to share everything with you, but maybe I don't. Right. And I think that this is empowering both for men and for women.
Yeah.
And it changes the narrative a bit on marriage, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, there's more equality there. And what we're really fighting for is equality.
Yeah.
And this is one of many examples that are sort of built into the legislature and built into the lifestyle here. It's an interesting culture. The longer you live in it and the more women from this place that you get to know, which is a nice thing about the club too, is that it's still majority locals. It's a way to really live a culture. You see all these digital nomads now that maybe say they're doing slow travel, maybe a month here, a month there. It seems like we are returning to a value placed on getting to know something at a deeper level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think that's so interesting, first of all, that's even like a part of Barcelona and Catalonia, because if I had known that, I would have moved here even sooner. But I think like that's the difference though, too, is that like America isn't like that. It more so focuses on pitting women against each other, especially like for me and for other Black women, like especially for me as a light-skinned Black woman, like we are constantly in competition with other Black women, whether it's for jobs, whether it's for men, whether it's just for general recognition. And then on the other side, like from just like whatever your race is, like women are always pitted against each other, especially for jobs, especially when it comes to like male attention or anything of that nature. So it's sort of like internalized anti-feminism, that I think at some point we all go through. I actually heard a woman in the library a few weeks ago that said something, and I actually messaged my team. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that. Why would she think that? She's a woman. But then when I was listening to her, it was kind of the same thing where she was kind of acknowledging that like internalized anti-womanhood that we are naturally taught as women and as we grow up. And it was something that I really had to get out of like my own way for. And when I started doing that and really understanding like how powerful we are as women when we are together and united, and especially from an American perspective, like the women over there, when they have gotten together and really banded together, we could change a lot of what, we won't go there, but there's a lot that could happen.
There's a lot to it. I think something that I love to consider is, what is analytical thinking and how has it been taught to you? When you start to expand to an international group of friends, you start to also see that it's taught really differently in each country. And in some countries, it's not taught at all.
Yeah.
And that's for specific reasons, whether you come from somewhere with a specifically communist government, for example, analytical thinking is not on the table.
Yeah.
Right. And then when it comes to the US, depending on what state you're from, your education varies so much. Yeah, I have to say that I had so much more, I had reverse culture shock because I've moved back and forth between the US and Spain a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point I landed in Texas for a little while. Wow.
Yeah.
Or visiting friends in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And these are beautiful places full of beautiful souled people.
Yeah.
But the difference between the education that they might receive there versus some friends who I know from California, or I'm from Maine, you've been in the Northeast for a large part of your life too.
Yeah.
And understand that we're extremely privileged to have grown up with a liberal education
Mm-hmm.
that gives you an opportunity to learn debate,
Yeah.
to learn to look at something that you're reading and question it.
Yeah.
And develop an opinion and listen to, debates and arguments and be forced to argue the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the more difficult academic tasks that I have are arguing something I don't believe in. But I think it's important to do because it gives you empathy for the other side, which is something we could use a lot more of.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what I try to, as much as possible, like lead with is empathy. And just like, I think the way I sort of reversed my viewpoint on it was kind of like that empathetic standpoint where it's almost like, the old saying, like, do unto you was you, whatever the hell that is. Yeah.
It shows up all over the world.
Yes.
Keep it simple. Sometimes that's really what you could be basing your personal ethics on, and you'd be in a good place.
Yeah. So then I start thinking like, okay, what would I have wanted, from my boss or from my friend or relationship or whatever it is. And then I try to give that, especially when it comes to being an entrepreneur and having a team. Like for me, like the reason I became an entrepreneur is because my bosses didn't really give me what I wanted in terms of like the work environment. And so I'm like, okay, well, I want to give my employees what like they want, but also like what I kind of wish I had, which is like that extra support system and trying to sort of help everyone like break down their barriers of like single independentness and more so like opening themselves up. I'm like a semi-therapist to some of, my friends and stuff. And they're like, how do you get me to do this? I'm like, this is what we should be doing. It's like sharing and, communicating and having community. And I know like when I have found women that are entrepreneurs as well, that's when I'm like, oh my God, I feel so seen because there are days when I'm like, I'm a failure and I'm going to be living on the street and everything sucks. And I'm like crying and my husband's like, it's okay. Like, and I'm like, no, it's not. And then one of my entrepreneur women friends will tell me basically everything he does. And I believe it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right.
Sometimes we get so clouded, what is this expression where you're so deep in the woods, you can't see the forest.
Yes.
And something that I learned really early in entrepreneurship is that you can have your best day and your worst day on the same day.
Yes. Oh my God.
Often. And yeah, it's resilience. I'm really grateful for a lot of things through life that have given me resilience and that have tested it and shown me many times that it's there. You can always dig a bit deeper.
Yeah.
And it's right there for you. And it's really interesting finding the common threads between female entrepreneurs and then realizing, of course, everyone's story is built on something different, right? They all have different motivators. You come from the background of being a good boss, which is really cool because we're also experiencing such a generational shift of what a boss looks like.
Yeah.
Somebody help us train AI because it's still drawing the wrong picture. But the point is that there's so many things that have shifted right now from the period where we entered the workforce until we're the ones shaping the future of the workforce and of the products and the services that are being offered. And I think that we have more power than maybe we're really aware of.
Yeah.
Of what's happening, what's changing. I'm super excited to see what there is to come because the exponential changes that are just multiplying and snowballing over the last couple of years, it's like, what else is going to happen?
Yeah. It's been interesting to kind of look at how it's shifted. We work with a lot of business leaders in our work. And so they're also talking about that. They're also talking about like hiring as well as like, how do you as a leader adapt to these new technologies and changes? And, adjust to cancel culture. And it's hard because it's like, yes, like I love all of my employees and I always say that this business would not be this business without them. But then there's the days where it's like, how do I manage this when it's like I am also running a business, but I also need to try to like, you know, comfort you or, you know, give you the attention that you need in order to like continue to do your job and uplift. But sometimes it's kind of like, let's just get this shit done. Like,
Finding the line between personal and impersonal, I would say, is like one of the bigger challenges for our generation in work.
yeah.
Because what you find, like some of the things that you've said, make me think that the personal touch is probably what motivates your team, and I'm sure that comes through in your work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it is true. Business decisions have to be made.
Yeah.
Things can't be taken so personally.
Yes.
Now the culture here, working in Spain, it's been really interesting for me because I do come from a more American style background, and I had to learn to adapt my style when I got here. How to share criticism, how to make people understand where the good part of the message is instead of dwelling on the bad part. You know, these kind of cultural shifts, they've been an interesting challenge for me that I signed up for. I'm ready. I'm excited about that. But it can be frustrating. Sometimes you want to be taken at face value and not in an interpreted version.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it slows the growth a bit. You know, you have to take time, and then it's like, okay, people are worth it. You have to take that time and slow down and make it clear what you really meant to make sure they really understand.
Yes.
And so much of that is listening more than talking.
Yeah.
In my case.
Yeah. Oh, mine too. There's some times where I feel like I get like nervous when there's silence sometimes. So I really try to, I'm like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. But like inside, I like want to fill the space. And so it has been about listening. And, you know, I want to build something that I think is not normal, at least in America, you know, and that's definitely our office and work environment. And, you know, even just from seeing the work environment here, I'm like, oh, I would love to work here. I'll work here too, you know,
There's
and
a lot of cool stuff happening.
Yeah. And I think it's great. And I love to, obviously, there are some gentlemen that work here, but I also love to have, I think that's what I like the most about Juno is the fact that it is like an all women's co-working space. Like, yes, like men can come in for meetings and stuff like that. And there's always, but I think there's just something, I don't know, like, safety wise, and again, this might be my traumatized American inside, but just like safety wise, I think for me, like working in co-working spaces like that, where it's not that like male sort of like bro energy that you get when you're trying to work at some of these other co-working spaces in New York and Brooklyn and stuff like that.
I don't even know if it's an American thing, honestly. I think we all, culturally speaking, the presence of a man changes a lot of things. We all have anecdotes.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And in the end, there is a safeness that's created in this space. I'll never forget when we first opened, it was right after COVID. And one of my favorite things about what I do at Juno is teaching classes in our studio. And so I love to teach yoga. I love to teach fitness too, but usually I'm in the yoga setting. And for the first, I'd say 6 months solid, there wasn't a single class I taught, and I teach, 4 or 5 classes per week, where somebody didn't say to me, this is the first time I'm moving my body since COVID.
Yeah.
This was so common in all these classes, but many of these women felt, okay, this is a place where it's not just because the studio itself only has women in it. That's different. It's kind of the whole feeling from the moment you walk in the door. Like, okay, I don't need to feel judged on what I'm doing, what I'm moving and stuff like that. And sometimes I wonder if this is missing for men too.
Yeah.
Because I think it's easy to put so many of these things on, for women, it's this. But I have to say, there is a voice in my head so many times that say, isn't it this way for men too?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, it's very simple because much of it is this dichotomy between male, female. But I have to say, as the founder of an all-female members club, I have a lot of sympathy for what the men are going through too.
Yeah.
And so I think that maybe we need to examine this from a more human perspective too. Like, what have we done?
Yeah.
What have we done to make people feel so insecure?
Yeah. I mean, it's just that natural, I feel like, in competition between male and female, the idea that for whatever reason, that men are the superior beings. And then I think on top of that, we've sort of blanketed all men into the same sort of category.
Mm.
My husband gets really upset when I'm like, all men are blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what about me? And
He's
I'm
that's
like,
not fair.
I'm
Yeah.
like, you're an exception, but
Yeah.
that is something that's so natural for us as women is to, blanket men into one big group as like predatory or threatening or whatever it is. And also that they can't like have some of the same insecurities as us,
Yeah.
like I work a lot in the mental health space. And that's one of the things one of my clients works on too, is like mental health for men, because it's such a stigma for them because they're supposed to just be, perfect and all.
Strong.
Yeah.
Don't cry.
Exactly. Like you're the man, So I definitely like empathize with them as well. There's I don't want to be one of those people that's like, fuck men,
Right.
Like,
I agree
but
with you.
there is just something I think, especially just for me, I think I've always just weirdly been someone that I don't know, not even weirdly. I just like I hate being hit on. I'm so standoffish. That's probably why I was single for like 8 years because
I'm not gonna say they're not related, but cause and effect.
yeah, so I think for me, especially until I like feel really comfortable somewhere, it's just been nice to be able to like come in here and like just know like I also have been working from home since I started this business and have only been working,
That's so cool.
predominantly with women. And so I also think it's that like I actually haven't been around a lot of men in such a long time.
Yeah.
So it feels weird sometimes to be like, oh my God, now I'm like working in this public space and like here is a man, I'm just
Yeah.
not used to that. So it's like I'm slowly getting used to it. I will say I like go in the bathroom sometimes. I'm like, oh, there's a man here today because the toilet seat's up.
Can I tell you how much that bothers me? I'm like, you did not.
I
You
know.
did
I'm like,
not. We did not just walk in Juno house and leave the seat up.
yes.
You got
I'm like, you came to a women's co-working space and left the toilet seat.
Man, if only we had an equivalent.
I know, right?
Oh, it's called putting seat down.
Yeah, that's the worst. But I do feel for them, and I have had people shout out to Max who worked with me for like 3 years. We love Max, right, Liv? So it's not that I'm like anti-men, it's just definitely it's a big change for me. And I know people are like, how? Like you were in New York, and I'm like, you don't understand. Like New York got so expensive the last like 2 years, year to 2 years that I worked from home and
going out and everything.
I stopped going out. Like I started going out when I started dating my husband because, he started paying for everything. Yeah, he took me out. But other than that,
demanded that you leave the house.
oh yeah, never really like went out. Like I was so antisocial. So now I'm really trying to get back out there.
So much of these things we mix and mash, because I prefer to always throw the provocative thought in. I think that like a debate makes something more interesting here. So let's say how much of it is antisocial and how much of it is the cultural shift to doing things at home, the availability of everything. Let's say we're like working out at home, we're working from home, we're listening to our podcast with our headphones on, we're isolating ourselves more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And, you even see that shift of people leaving the city and moving to houses. Well, it sounds like you're going to spend more time in your house
alone.
now,
Yeah.
right? And so what happened? Like this was inspired by something.
Yeah.
And do you think we'll see a whiplash?
I don't know. I think that maybe like whatever's under us, Gen Z or something. I think there's
Heard of it.
Yeah. Those guys. I think that they are sort of trying to like bring life back into like, our everyday. So I feel like it might be them. But I think for like me and like the millennials, I think it's over for us. I don't know if there's any hope. I think we're all moving into our mid 30s.
You're about to have your first summer in Barcelona.
I know. I am gonna
You're gonna be out there. You'll be out there. There's a lot to living in these cities where life happens outside too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed it when you're looking for an apartment, but here a lot of the kitchens are itty bitty.
Yep.
The living rooms are also rather small. You can hear your neighbors, but you almost always have a balcony.
Yeah.
And people live their life outside. There's so many restaurants and bars that you could always eat affordably.
Yeah.
there's so many public spaces where people hang out, and this is something that's even increasingly happening here.
Mhm.
And when I see that in a city, it reaffirms that this is a place where I should be living.
Yeah.
Because if you are encouraging people to meet outside, you can still meet people just randomly here.
Yeah.
And I think that can happen anywhere. It happens to me all over. So I'm not necessarily saying that you have to come here for that. But I do think that creating an environment where it happens, and when it comes to the city planning, I know that this kind of thing is in mind because it's built and threaded into the culture so much. This
Yeah.
isolation is not normal here.
Yeah. And that's the great thing too. Like we're in Gotico and I'm like 10 15 minute walk to like Ciutadella Park. You know,
Mhm.
I've been taking my dog to the beach in the morning
Yeah.
and it's just like I just love being outside. Like I think that's the Vermonter in me, you
Yeah.
know. I'm like,
That's
give me
our
some
New
nature.
England.
Yeah.
We have to. I think Ciutadella is an interesting example because on a sunny day, it looks like there's a festival happening.
Yeah.
And people's blankets are so close to each other that they're just going to start talking.
Yeah.
And this
'Cause
is
it's
very
like,
cool.
oh.
And I wonder if this could have been happening in Prospect Park or anything like that. I'm sure it did too.
Yeah, I think it's probably easier here just because the weather is so much nicer. Like, I think there's this New York City culture where, you know, once it's like 60 or even below 70, people are like, oh, inside we go, you know, and they just like sit there and like there's this like, you know, New York saying, you know, when it starts to get nice out where it's like bitches is outside, you know?
Like your personality changes,
Yeah.
and there's so much of like your personality changes so many times in your life
Hmm.
too. I think it's so interesting when you remove yourself from where you've been living. And I like to say that you have to recontextualize your life.
Hmm.
This means people are asking you questions that you haven't answered in years.
Yeah.
What do you care about? What are your ethics like?
Yeah.
What are your interests? What do you do with your free time? And you start to think, am I about to make some stuff up right now? Or am I going to tell them, am I going to tell them what I'm interested in getting into?
Right.
Because if you are reinventing yourself, even just a small level, it's your opportunity to say, okay, what am I leaving behind and what am I embracing now?
Yeah.
And this is a really cool thing about changing countries or even just changing cities.
Yeah.
And I love to always kind of ask people, like, what did you ditch and what did you
Okay.
pick up?
Okay. What did I ditch? I ditched a lot of expenses, to be honest. And I think I picked up just like a little bit of like a calmer spirit. Like New York is very stressful and there's obviously people I miss and, you know, certain things that I miss about New York or even home, but like for me, I think the benefits are just like the peace of body, mind, spirit, you know, that I've gotten. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely think I ditched the strict schedule.
Hmm.
Um, I've always been the kind of person who schedules things down to the minute, not necessarily because I'm an obsessive planner, but because I want to do so many things.
Yeah.
Like I am a clinical case of FOMO. I let that go.
Yeah.
I ditched FOMO and it's been a lovely transgression, but I think that comes with age too. And then what did I pick up? I think I also kind of within the same vein picked up a little bit more work-life balance.
Yeah.
Which has to do with not necessarily putting so much focus on one and then the other and bouncing from one extreme to the other, but instead finding a way to weave them together, which was a big part of the inspiration to become an entrepreneur in the first place, which comes with a caveat because I definitely hear a lot of people say, hey, I want to become an entrepreneur because I want to own my own time. And I'm like, hold on. Just so
don't.
you know, you're going to work just as much or probably double.
Yeah.
Right? But yes, it's for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's almost more important to figure out what work-life balance looks like when you are an entrepreneur because you could never stop.
Yeah.
There is always work you could be doing. It's never done. So it's about deciding and feeling good about when you shut your laptop.
Yes.
And deciding, okay, I've done enough for today and everything else can wait.
Yeah.
Or saying, today's the day where I'm going to keep pushing.
Yeah.
Today's the day where I need to get this out there. It's important to my business. It's important to me. And it's important to my clients. This is going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is what owning your time is like within entrepreneurship from my perspective.
Yeah. That's something that I sort of like integrated very early on into the business. I was like, we're only working 4 days a week and we're working from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I have so many clients that are just like, I don't understand how you only work 4 days a week and how you only work for these hours. And I'm like, because I've been in this industry long enough, like I know when people are looking at their emails and pitches and stuff like that. And yeah, I want to have a work-life balance. So 10 to 4, Tuesday through Friday. That is my team schedule. My schedule
Right.
ranges. When I was in New York, there was some times where I would be on at 7 a.m. and I would be done at like 6. Or there was days when I'd be on at 10 and I'd be on until 1 a.m., and that's just because I run my business and there's things that I need to do to like make sure it's good. But I always had like that European mindset early on. So I was like, I'm not going to work on Mondays. And it's been the best thing ever because now my weekends are kind of dedicated to like my relationship and my friends. And then Mondays are like my day. Like
Nice.
my husband's working, he'll leave me alone, don't have to talk to him. All my other friends are working, so they'll leave me alone. And then I have the day to myself to do whatever. And sure, sometimes I'm like online for a few hours just getting ready for the week. But that's also to just like help my nerves so I can actually
But you've
enjoy the
chosen
day.
that.
Yeah,
You've chosen that. And when it's your day, you choose.
exactly. And I can do whatever I want with it. And
Mhm.
it's great. And part of the free time too, I think, is also just like not having children. But, one like my husband and I don't want kids, but then before we moved here, there was also that conversation that was like, well, we don't know what sort of like life balance is going to happen when we move there. And not saying that I'm like ready to have kids, but one of the great things about Juno specifically is the fact that you do have like the Juno kids.
We do have family friendly space. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, it shouldn't be so like mind blowing,
Yeah.
like
And
it
yet,
should be something that should be available for more people, and yet it is. But the idea that, moms and working moms, and I also see some of the most adorable pregnant girls here all the time. I'm like, you go, girl, with your cute little belly. Like they have that opportunity to continue their work and have their child nearby without having to worry about it. Sometimes I like forget that it's there, and all of a sudden I'll hear a kid in the lounge and I'm like, what?
yeah.
And then I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is here.
Yeah.
But I believe Natalie's a mom, right?
She is. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you guys like start thinking about that in terms of like integrating into the space and
Yeah.
like how it would work?
Well, initially, we knew fairly early that it was going to be a women only space.
Hmm.
We definitely considered genuinely what it would be like for it to be a co-ed space. But it didn't fit exactly with what we wanted to achieve with it.
Hmm.
And then she got pregnant during the process
Okay.
with her first child. And in fact, it was actually she was pregnant with her second child while we were fundraising. And so it was all very much part of the journey and just seeing the way that it could be naturally built into while building a business.
Yeah.
It became obvious that we needed to cater to moms, to mothers. And that naturally became part of it. So again, going back to this trifecta of the three founders, Eva is a woman whose children are graduating university, and she's got a lot more experience in life and in her professional life than we do. Natalie is a career woman with two children, and of the three of them, I'm the one who's a bit younger and still just been working on my career more than anything else.
Hmm.
And so from these three perspectives, we knew and could agree that mothers needed to have a space within Juno. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you have to be using it. Ava can understand that she would have loved to have had that. I can understand that maybe someday I'd love to have that. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be all or nothing. It was more thinking, okay, what about the aunties?
Yeah.
And what about the grandmothers? A grandmother isn't an old lady with gray hair and a bonnet. A grandmother could be a woman who's still kicking ass in her career.
Yeah.
There's a longer professional life for everybody right now.
Yeah.
And so this space was considered family friendly because there might be one day per week where your grandmother is taking care of, let's say the grandmother is taking care of children and needs somewhere to hang out with them because maybe there's too much crystal in her house and she doesn't want you to come over and break it.
Yeah.
It's good to have these alternatives. So it was about thinking a bit bigger than that and not
Yeah.
always zooming things down onto what feels very obvious.
Yeah.
And this is the cool thing. And I always like to kind of take a minute to get like little picture bit up, in and out, in and out, in and out. And that gives you an opportunity to think beyond needs. And what we wanted to do is also sort of predict needs, right? I think you mentioned something about this earlier too. And maybe that comes from growing up working in hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is very much a mindset that they put into you. And like to do a good job, you need to predict people's needs.
Yeah. Like, what do they need? When do they need it? How often do they need it? And I think for women in business, like the child care aspect or the ability to have your child near you or whatever it is, like that is sometimes limiting women from being able to go back to work. And especially like I just had two of my best friends just had kids. So I'm like a friend auntie now. And, you know, just hearing them talk about it, I know that they could use that. Like when one of my friends went back to work for the first time, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." She's like, "Yes, I feel a little weird, you know, separating, but at the same time, like I need space, you know, like I need to not have something clinging on to me for that long." And I think it's so great to be able to like even just have a small distance. Like every mother is different. Some mothers are like, "See ya, I'll be back at 6 or whatever." Other mothers, you know, they want to be there for a little bit of the time or, you know, the whole time. And so this definitely like makes women reconsider their options, I think. If they're having, you know, the companies that are even starting, the bigger ones that are integrating like preschools and stuff into the buildings, like those are the companies that are worth like investing in, because then that means in turn, like you're allowing these women to invest in themselves. And that's one of the biggest thing I think for women in freedom is the fact of being able to work and have something that's for yourself. Not, I don't think every woman has to be an entrepreneur, but just like having the opportunity to be financially stable on their own, you know, like that's really big. That's something I've always like pushed for. And my husband's like, "It's fine, I got this." And I was like, "No, I need my own money. Like, not that I think you're gonna like leave me high and dry, but you know, just in case." Like, have to have that security.
Absolutely. I think it's super empowering. I think there's so many aspects of a woman's professional life that have to do with empowerment. And this is a buzzword, but I'm kind of a hater on buzzwords in general because I'm sort of nitpicky on grammar and things in the first place. So I don't like them being misused. It drives me nuts. But I think that empowerment truly happens for people in so many different ways in so many different areas. But professionally speaking, it's when you're feeling on top of your game. It's when something makes you feel like, "I just did this and it's better because I did it." You know, or "I'm better because I did it." You know, this moment where you sort of like sit up a little bit straighter, smile to yourself, and feel good about something from a very complete way. This is empowerment to me, right? And I don't necessarily like other people telling me how I should feel empowered, right? And this is what bothers me about that word being spun into such a marketing thing. Like, I don't know if you really understood it now that you're trying to tell me what I'm supposed to feel empowered about. Suggest a way. But don't make it a claim.
Because let me choose.
Exactly. Empowerment is going to feel different for some. Let's say that you're somebody who has never experienced discrimination in the workplace. Okay, well, then those tools that are directed towards that aren't going to make this person feel empowered. And now we're diluting what it feels like to feel empowered. This person needs a different kind of encouragement or challenge to overcome in which they can experience that. So I don't know. I also think that as we study these things, we have to kind of pull them apart a little bit and not assume that it's a big grand experience that all of us are riding in the same boat.
Yes. Yeah. Sort of like similarly, just to like how all women and how all men, they're not all under the same blanket. You know, everyone's different and understanding that. And that's what you guys are doing here is like understanding that every woman that walks into this door is different. Not all of them are entrepreneurs, you know, not all of them are, you know, freelancers or work from home or whatever. Some of them are like, "I have an idea and I haven't even figured out how to ideate it yet, but I'm going to come to Juno and meet these women and allow them to help me develop this, whatever the idea is."
The nascent stage is beautiful. And the more people you talk to, the more it can start to roll around in your head a bit. And then when you feel comfortable enough to share it with somebody, then you might hear a bit of encouragement that's like, okay, maybe there's something there. Okay. And that's kind of how it all starts. You know, most people don't just wake up one day and create a business plan. Right? It's rolling around in the back of your head for a while.
Mine was too. And then finally my boss was being a dick and I was like, "Fuck you, I'm out."
Listen, that is a huge driver
Yeah.
for a lot of people when you're sometimes they say for a lot of products at least you have to create an enemy,
Hmm.
right? Or even a service. Create an enemy and build your marketing around that. Not my favorite strategy, but I understand something there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that earlier this year, you guys were doing a couple of pop-ups,
Yeah.
right? I think you guys did one in Madrid
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
London.
We started in Madrid.
Okay.
Yes. We're definitely interested in expanding our pop-ups because it was a really big success and
Okay.
super beautiful for us to see some of our favorite programming take shape and be offered to women in different cities.
Hmm.
Madrid is a very cool city.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've had the pleasure of
I was
spending
there
time there.
last May.
Mhm.
It was overwhelming for me, but
It's a big
maybe I
city.
need to like go back and try
Do
again.
again. It is a big city.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that I love it is it kind of gives me that little flash of New York life because
Yeah.
I love big city. I'm from a small town
Yeah.
and I love big cities.
Yeah.
And I could just live in both of them half of the year and half of the year and be the happiest. So Madrid has that to it. It has a very different feeling as well, culturally speaking. And so that's been fun for us to explore and to offer because the members club model that we have here in Barcelona could never be the exact same members club model that exists in London or in Hong Kong or in New
Yeah.
York City. Right. So it had to be adapted. And so that's a fun challenge to even think about. When we knew we were going to be there for 4 straight days, we wanted to bring some of our favorite programming. Like we have one series which is called Juno Thrive,
Okay.
which is probably the first ideation we had before Juno existed,
Okay.
which is a monthly talk on geopolitics, macroeconomics, business cases, and
Oh,
basically
okay.
global affairs.
Yeah.
So for me, that's one of the causes that's really close to my heart. I've always cared a lot about having conversations in that area and encouraging friends and people I'm around not to be scared to talk about it either,
Yeah.
because if not, we don't have the opportunity to ask questions and develop our own opinions on things. You can be so easily convinced by things you read. Just think, a professional journalist is very good at convincing people of things. It's not your fault that you read one article and you believe what they told you, right?
Yeah.
So you do need to expose yourself to different things. So anyway, so that was one of our favorite things to bring with us to Madrid and expose there. We do that in partnership with Unbank, which is one of our great partners who's been with
Okay.
us, and they're also interested in global affairs. And so we do that
Okay.
in a partnership. And then we had lots of different other workshops. One of our founding members, Gemma Field, she also came in and gave us a beautiful workshop about creating rituals in your life.
Okay.
So she did beautiful work there. We had some other talks on sustainable fashion with Falconeri and Simora. So we tried to bring in some brands that represent both Barcelona and something a little bit more national across Spain.
Okay.
And it was so fun to connect with other women and what we talked about earlier, when you have to leave where you're from and explain who you are again.
Yeah.
Right. So this was kind of Juno's moment to
Yeah.
do exactly that and talk about where we want to take it, where we want to go. All of us are very ambitious from the
Yeah.
founding team, and we would love to see Juno grow in a lot of different ways. So
Yeah. So you're thinking of like other locations as well. Okay.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that that's such a great opportunity on like exposing, who you are. Like just like with my session, like at first I was like, oh my God, the idea of like networking again, like it seems so exhausting. But I was like, I'm in a new place and this kind of gives me an opportunity to sort of like re-explain myself and like in that really like understand like what I want people to take out of it. Like I've been running this company from New York for so long and I haven't really had to like explain.
Mhm.
And so coming here and being like, this is what I think I need to do. And like, as I'm preparing for it, or technically as I was preparing for it, I was thinking about all of the things that, I really wanted people to like walk away from. Like,
Mhm.
what are they walking away with? Not just about like the company and the work we do, but also like me as like a founder, as a person, as someone who is not just looking for business relationships, but also like looking for friendships or mentors. Like that's something that is super important for me because I feel like I'm a nerd. I love learning, I love knowledge and all that. And I obviously understand that I don't know everything. And, you don't know what you don't know. And that's something that I feel like as an entrepreneur, you have to like get rid of your ego sometimes and like learn that. And especially if you want to like live long in the business world.
Yeah.
Like continue to learn.
Always, always. I'm with you on that one. I'm definitely an academic nerdy girl.
Yeah.
But I think that it's what keeps me interested and growing and willing to kind of sit down and let someone explain something to you. And because a lot of entrepreneurs have these kind of fiery personalities. You're quick to finish somebody else's sentence.
Yeah.
And that's also a very American thing that
that's
that I
me.
had I had to be careful with that one and notice how much airtime I was taking up in the room and yeah, give that a second to cool off.
Yeah.
Because there's certain people who don't need to speak over you. And so you might not get what they want to share unless you're coaxing it out a bit or leaving those uncomfortable silences that you spoke about earlier. I think that's so interesting. There are some studies that have looked at how many filler words and physical gestures that women will make in conversations versus men. I'll give you one guess.
Sorry.
Who do you think does more?
Yeah.
And so if you can just kind of bite your tongue and hold your head still for a little while, even if you make it for 30 seconds, you are well above the average.
Yeah.
Because most people are not doing that. Most women are not doing that. And sometimes you can be really surprised by the kinds of things that people are willing to share when there's space for them.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, do you think that is because like strategically, women haven't always had the floor to be able to like say what they need to say. So they tend to be a little bit more active in that regard, like in terms of trying to get out what they need.
I wonder if it's a little bit more. So there's two sides to it, right? One is the nodding and the yes and the agreeing, the affirmations that are given during conversations, which I think might come from being somebody that's very positive, agreeable, or making somebody feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Which are three characteristics which have been definitely awarded in women over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the other side of it, when you're on the flip side and whether or not you're taking up space and getting your ideas heard, we have to shout a little bit louder. I can't tell you how many times, you say something super clever, but a little bit under your voice.
Yeah.
And then a man says it louder and the crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
This happens to me constantly. I have an older brother. This has been happening my whole life. I'm like, okay, great delivery, my punchline.
Yeah.
And how many times? Again, so much of this is personality.
Yeah.
I think, but there are definitely tendencies of this within women who need to kind of push their ideas further and observe and find the style that's going to help them get there.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can't mimic exactly. Let's say that you only have 3 channels at home. And you're only seeing a few representations of women at the front. And maybe it's only a couple news channels, and maybe they're weather channels. Who knows? Maybe you only have a comedy channel. You're only seeing a couple ways of putting your ideas forward. And so exposing yourself and trying things out, or maybe even doing a little bit of public speaking and seeing what flows with you. There's so many communication styles, and some of them are going to work better than others. But I think that there's a lot of trial and error there. Asking for feedback can be so difficult and kind of cringy.
Yeah.
Something that I don't do that I probably should is, record myself doing certain speeches or preparing.
Yeah.
I always prefer to kind of jump into a presentation and
I'm a wing it.
I'm
like,
a wing it person. And if
see
I
what
practice
happens.
it too much, like I lose the good pitch in the practice.
Yeah.
And then I'm on stage and I'm like, that was pretty dull.
Yeah. And I'm like, what did I say the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened early on here in the podcast room where we hit the button wrong, and we had a beautiful podcast recorded between 3 people, and we had to re-record it, and all of us were so disappointed. In the second version, we didn't even publish it.
Yeah.
We didn't even publish it because it's like, nope, we got to wait a month and come back and talk about something else.
Yeah.
The magic was lost there. So I know I'm contradicting my own point right now.
Yeah. No, but that's so true. And I've definitely had that happen before, because when we used to record this in Brooklyn at a studio, sometimes while the engineer is getting things together, like me and the guest would just start talking. And then I'd be like, wait, no, stop. Let's save this for the recording. Like, don't say anything more. Because it's always like, if you rehearse too much, like I feel like you lose some of it, or like, it doesn't come off as like powerful as you were hoping for the first time. Well, I feel like Juno is definitely providing, though, like a space and a platform for women to develop in like all aspects of their career, not like just business, even like the personal side of it, wellness side. So I appreciate what you guys have created. I'm very excited to immerse myself even more. So I thank you so much for that.
Glad to have you in the community. It's really
Thank
cool. It's
you.
nice for us to have a growing international side as well, because the community has always been, initially it was about 70% locals,
Mhm.
30% internationals. This is kind of adjusting. And people are always really surprised by that. They
Yeah.
think, oh, yeah, this is an international concept, guaranteed. It's all expats. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, 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 hold the phone. That's not
Yeah.
what's happening here, which is cool for people like you and me, because on a personal level, it's helped me feel a lot more anchored in this city by
Mhm.
being closer and having a group of women who I can consider friends,
Yeah.
and who I can count on, who I can talk to, who are from here, and
Yeah.
so I really hope that you get to experience this too.
I know I
And
will.
also sharing what it's like to be someone who grew up in American culture, because there's a lot of it that people don't understand.
Hmm.
And so be generous with your explanations, and
Yeah.
give people your time, even though sometimes it might feel like something's obvious.
Hmm.
It might not be.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I always try to do. I think that I've learned that through like having interns and just like teaching my team is that things that feel obvious to me, like sometimes are just like not for others. And yeah, I think it's such a great thing. It's just like a little bit more patience, a little bit more explanation. And, that's what we want. That's why they've joined this community as well. Because if they just wanted
Exactly.
locals, they would have gone somewhere
Somewhere
that's
else.
just local.
Exactly.
So it's like they're also open to having that experience. And while I'm here to learn about their culture, I'm sure they're also curious to learn
Yeah.
about ours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can we say that US has a culture? We don't know.
Definitely.
On
Definitely.
another episode.
It's easier to love when you take a little step back.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
speaking from having been here for a few years, you start to let the tough stuff fade away, and you can maybe fall in love with where you're from again too. It's
Yeah.
time for for one of those big walks, Jen.
I know. I know. Maybe in September.
A multi-borough walk.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Where can everybody keep up with you, keep up with
Yeah.
Juno,
Yeah.
learn more?
So we have our socials on Instagram, on LinkedIn's a good place too. We keep a nice balance
Okay.
of lifestyle and of what we do from more a business perspective. So on there, we're Juno House Club.
Okay.
And then, I kind of like to also promote different things that have to do with health
Yeah.
and wellness, which is my biggest passion. So I'm on Instagram at moving_health.
Okay.
That's me. But yeah, I'm always really happy to connect with people who are interested in what we're doing here. And I like to hear other people's stories too. So yeah,
Yes.
feel free to reach out.
Yes, amazing. And of course, you guys can always find us at High on Feminism, Instagram, website, website, Instagram. Our YouTube channel is at Woke Media BK. We are going to again be introducing you to a bunch of really amazing entrepreneurs that are also members here at Juno House Club. I'm gonna keep, taking my yoga classes and breathing, and eventually I'll go shopping for a new wardrobe.
See you on the mat.
Yes, and thank you so much again, Liana. This was great to
It's been
have
a
you.
pleasure.
Thanks,
Great chat.
guys. Ciao.